Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the Discovering a True Service-Driven Multi-Cloud Future session with CDW and VMware. I'm Guy Smith. I'm delighted to host this session where we'll be talking about how to deliver cloud-like services across a range of platforms in a consistent way. And to do that, I'm joined today by Richard Monroe, Director for Global Cloud Strategy at VMware.
Hey, Guy.
Hey, Richard.
Hi, everyone.
Today we're going to go through this. There'll be polling questions posted throughout. I'd be really grateful if you could answer those, as we'd love to hear your feedback. We'll also be hosting a Q&A at the end of the session with any time that we've got left. So please do put questions into the Q&A window, and we'll get to as many of those as we can with the time that we've got left. To start this off, I want to start by talking about how CDW thinks about cloud and how to best use it to deliver services. And our view is very much that cloud is a way of delivering services, not just a destination in and of itself. And really at CDW, we try and think about the things that you care about most before we think about the technology. And fundamentally, those are your people, your customers, and your applications, rather than the tin and wires or the destinations that go into supporting those. Really, cloud is a way of delivering those services, putting those on platforms that best meet the need of those services at the particular time that they need them, and understanding that that will change and evolve over time as the needs change and as the applications develop. In terms of how that looks and the kind of consumption of the cloud that people are now demanding, fundamentally, people are looking for services that exist across any time, any place, and any device, no longer constrained to typical IT managed equipment or inside the office, certainly with the world that we're currently living in. And the people that are demanding those things at those times and in those places are looking for a variety of characteristics to those services. They want them to be on demand. They want them to be available at the point at which they are ready to consume them, rather than having to wait for the sort of traditional ticket-based service provision process. They want them to be standardized so that they know what they're going to expect every time they get them. Of course, scalable and available as well, so that they're able to meet the needs as the demand of the workload grows. And then also, having that fundamental security that's baked into the way that those services are provisioned, rather than it being a sort of a wraparound afterthought. And as we're all used to at this point, actually paying based on the usage. That's particularly important as we move to a more iterative service development and application deployment world, where we want to be able to start small and start cheaply as a result, prove value, and then increment and scale from there. And the people that are asking for those things exist across a spectrum of different types, from not just the internal end users that you might be used to, but external users as well, people like customers and partners that you might be working with, as well as different groups that now are asking for access to those services to help create value in those areas. So whether that's developers, both the traditional sense and the sort of citizen app developers that you might now have in your organization, and of course your traditional application owners who more and more are looking to augment their services that they're providing to the business and their customers with additional technology integrations that are made available through the software platforms. And as they do that, they're then looking for a set of kind of underpinning services to be able to support that, from resources that are available at the time they need them, to data from across the organization being available in multiple platforms, being available securely, and of course with the right level of performance. They want the consistency of the services that they're consuming, so that they're able to deploy workloads in wherever location makes sense, both in terms of where they're developing them and then as they move into production. As I mentioned a minute ago, the sort of security of those services being baked in, so that they don't have to do a load of extra work in order to be able to secure the services that they're building, can take confidence that the controls are put in place for them without becoming a blocker. And then finally, the connectivity needs to be in place so that the services that they're building can access all of the other services that may wrap around those applications in order to be able to provide that value. Fundamentally, when you're consuming, you get to choose, right? The platform that you take becomes a choice based on what's going to work for you. And because of that kind of customer-like expectation, people start to make different choices than maybe IT departments would like them to do so. We've all seen the sort of explosion of shadow IT that's come as a result of the fact that, you know, the traditional service provisioning processes that you can see on the left, whether it's a ServiceNow ticket or quite often actually just an email to a service desk or an IT team asking for something to be spun up, is meaning that people are more and more going to portal, catalog, kind of shopping cart or shopfront based services like AWS and Azure. And the challenge for IT teams is that you actually need to provide good choices that almost in some ways compete with those public cloud offerings so that people can have the benefits of the types of services that I've talked about already. So that really is driving that move towards shadow IT. And Richard now is going to talk about how the VMware technology stack is actually able to provide some of those services in a better way.
Thanks, Guy. Yeah, I think you've highlighted a really crucial point, which is, you know, when we think about how do we innovate, how do we provide IT services, it's really making sure that we have a focus on that consumption, but not at the expense of the ways we need to efficiently and securely manage our services as well. So I think to kick off, rather than go straight into the technology, I want to talk about a logical representation of pretty much what Guy was just talking about in terms of how would you organize yourselves for cloud delivery, because some things need to change from a people and process perspective, no matter what your technology platform is. So like I said, this is a logical construct. So there's not many customers I work with who are actually organized this way, but these principles certainly convey. So at the bottom here, we can see that if you want to provide IT services for consumption, you need to operate them in a consistent way. And the kind of things that we do when we operate our platforms are we make sure they're available, we make sure they're managed, efficient, secure, and we have to keep updating them. We have to keep them up to date with the latest capabilities that the platform should have. And when I say platform, you know, there's any type of service that you can think of cloud platform could fit in here. So you could have VMware Cloud Foundation be that, you know, a hybrid cloud. So within your VMware Cloud Foundation cloud, you'd be having the VMware services in your data center, those in VMware Cloud and AWS, in Azure VMware Solutions, all managed as a single capacity entity. You could have your native AWS platform, your native Microsoft Azure. You can even have customers who stand up their own platform. So one customer has a shared health analytics that IT actually provide, and this is a platform for people to do health analytics, unsurprisingly. And actually, under the skin of it, it's using a combination, in this case, of AWS and VMware Cloud Foundation, but it's presented as a platform for people to consume. Now, typically in traditional IT, you know, we've kind of stopped there. We've looked after, you know, managing usually a single platform, and the architectural principles, so the policy, the strategy, compliance requirements, are usually baked into our operation of that platform. So we might have very rigid change control processes because we have one application that requires very rigid change control processes. But actually in the cloud delivery model, we need to disconnect these two things of operations and consumption. So for cloud, you'd expect to say, well, look, I have this line of business, department, application, project, whatever it is. But I have this one, Department of Engineering, and they need to consume those platforms that you can see below. They need to consume them with Six Sigma, with heavy ITIL, because there's very strict, high compliance applications and data that's constrained within that. But if you want to avoid having loads of exceptions and really provide consumption of your IT, you also need to have a different focus of cloud tenancy. So this one might be exploring AI. So this is very agile, it's very fast. You can't really predict where it goes. It has a different change control regime because it's constantly experimenting with continuous delivery and so on. You might have another cloud tenancy that's focused on a specific application. So something that's for one of your customers to consume on a tablet or a retail application. You basically need to engineer a consumption model with architectural principles that suit that purpose. And of course, not forgetting that one thing we're all doing a lot right now is thinking about how our users connect. Having an entity that really represents the consumption of your IT from your own internal users' perspective, digital workspace, etc., is another example. And what we're doing here is we're trying to avoid this world of exceptions all the time to our policies. We're trying to say, look, we understand that we have different groups that we can logically provide demarcation around that will consume these platforms that we're operating in different ways. So we have groups that are focused on operations of those platforms, making sure they're available, and we have groups that are focused on consumption. And it's having that combination and those two focuses that allows the lines of business to operate the way they need to operate, which drives innovation in a business. What it also tells us is that this classic idea of cloud first that was what people were pursuing kind of 3 years ago really has to give way to something a bit more mature. And in the US, actually, there's a really nice saying, which is we've gone from cloud first to cloud smart. So cloud first is racing headlong into a nominated technical platform, and that's where you're going to throw everything, come hell or high water. And it's highly problematic. Cloud smart is recognizing that you're going to have different modes of operation. You're going to have different application types. And actually, if we think across our applications, we can actually see there isn't a single pathway. We're not going to put them all into hyperscaling microservice architectures. Along our applications, there'll be a huge amount that we just want to maintain. There's no business value in evolving it, but we probably want to still improve its availability, its resilience, its disaster recovery, etc. Then we have other applications that are working just fine, but we want to exploit some cloud capabilities from it. So, we want to scale up, scale down, cloud burst, those kind of things. So for those, we don't need to change the code, but we do want to have it on a cloud-like platform. We have the classic, which is refactor applications. So pick that application that's going to drive tremendous business value, refactor it to cloud native to take advantage of those technologies. Very, very valuable, very important to do. You're not going to do too many at once. And then for the new applications, it's being able to develop an application to take advantage of any cloud technology that suits what it is you're trying to do, as well as also having those applications that we're saying, look, there's no particular value to me in operating this anymore. So email going to Office 365, your bespoke HR system going to Workday, those kind of things. Probably the most important one on here is hybrid apps. Because actually, when we look at most new applications that you come across, it's not actually a brand new app. What's happening is that somebody's taking an existing application construct and saying, I actually just need to add a new mobile front end, or I just need to replace this data service component. So they're actually decomposing applications and writing a new service in a new app, in a new cloud native technology, and that's how we'll get hybrid apps, where it's doing all of these things at once. Now, this is a really, really important thing to recognize, that you're going to need to do all of these, which basically means you're going to need all technologies and all operation types at once. So the goal is actually to say, how do I support that in a reasonable way, given my own particular skills and resource constraints? How widespread is this recognition of cloud smart? Pretty widespread. So if you look at the VMware multi-cloud strategy, we've aimed for this for a number of years. We've built towards this reality that we saw coming. And now, we're very proud to say that actually, if you look at the top 6 hyperscale cloud providers in the world, every single one of them is strategically partnered with VMware now for offering multi-cloud solutions. So everyone's kind of gone through this cloud first phase and have come down to the realization now that it's about being able to do any application on any cloud. Guy, I think this is exactly how CDW see things evolving as well, right?
Yeah, exactly right. I think it's moving away from seeing cloud as an IT-led project, and actually using the variety of services and the platforms there as an enabler to let different parts of the business consume what they need to do to build value in their area. That's a real shift. I quite like that kind of cloud smart way of thinking about it.
Yeah. Now, one of the interesting things is the hardest piece historically for people to move has been where 80-90% of your applications are, which is in the data center. Now, if we think about the data center, there are two key reasons why data centers, even when we say you're running a private cloud, perhaps they're not able to offer this service-based consumption. And those two key reasons are really, one, if the technology isn't fully software defined, if it isn't up to date, if you're still doing lots of custom wiring, then it's really exclusively focused on traditional architecture applications. So it's going to really struggle providing this service-driven world. The second thing is the lifecycle management of traditional IT, where we handle all the hardware and software in a bespoke way, is slow. It's been fantastic value for organizations, but if we can only do it that way, then we're not going to be able to operate at the speed that cloud demands. Typically we see that lifecycle management in cloud environments is at least 5 times faster than it exists in fully on-premise with traditional application architectures. And we simply can't keep up if we continue to do our non-software defined approach to managing our infrastructures. So a really important part for cloud and driving this innovation is to make the decision, and it's a really simple decision actually, say I've now got to a point where I don't want to be this IT group on the left here, right? I need to slide right to where I can just point click automate my way through driving my cloud in my data center environment. And to do that, from VMware's perspective, there's a number of ways you can build this in technology terms. But if you like, the fast track way of doing that is this product we call VMware Cloud Foundation. So VMware Cloud Foundation is both a product, but it's also a capability, a platform. And it's the platform for hybrid cloud. So hybrid cloud is where you have the same infrastructure in different environments. This hybrid cloud is why we have customers who need to get out of a data center and they have maybe 900 virtual machines, and they can do that now in 3 weeks with no downtime. And there really are no gotchas in that. I know how unbelievable that sounds. It's because of the power of hybrid cloud, where you're able to just move workloads into the cloud, zero downtime, no re-architecture changes, same IP, same MAC address, etc. These are the fundamental concepts of the hybrid cloud. And VMware Cloud Foundation 4 really makes sure that we package up all those key components that drive automation. Sometimes people ask me, why do we do NSX, why vSAN, etc. It's not about doing all those things because we want to compete with Cisco or annoy them, right? Actually, we partner very well with Cisco. We do these things so that we can have a highly automated digital platform for the hybrid cloud. And where we've got with VMware Cloud Foundation 4 now is now also redesigned from inside out to support not only that ability to automate your data center, but it's also designed to support new application types as well as traditional architectures. And we do that through, basically we've rewritten it with Kubernetes at its core, and everything's exposed via APIs, which you will need to do for that service-driven approach. So basically now VMware Cloud Foundation has the same capabilities you expect to operate your environment. If you remember back to the chart from earlier, everything you need to operate a hybrid cloud, but it also provides a consumption surface that other frameworks like Kubernetes and so on can plug into so that they can consume the services that are being offered. And we have that now available to be built yourself. in your own data center on your own infrastructure. It's deployable on hyper-converged infrastructure. It's available as a VMware managed service through our partners like CDW in VMware Cloud on AWS, VMware Cloud on Dell EMC, later this year, VMware Cloud on AWS Outpost. And as we mentioned, it's actually instantiated in every single one of the top 6 public hyperscale cloud providers, as well as our amazing 4,000 plus network of partner clouds. Now, the reason that's important is I'm not saying that to show off. No, I'm saying that because that is a fundamental requirement of being able to adopt a multi-cloud strategy. Guy, we were talking, I know, just a few weeks ago after a customer engagement, and put aside the new technology constructs, this drive for automation in the data center has a dramatic impact for customers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're working with a hospital NHS trust at the moment where, funnily enough, actually deploying a lot of these technologies, and very much allows their IT teams to move that focus away from traditional IT management and operations towards getting out there and helping those different kind of consuming communities take advantage of the services that they're then able to provide. And we actually, go so far as to use those kind of automation technologies within our own services as well, because fundamentally, again, it allows us to create those kind of consistent, repeatable services that, free us up effectively and give us more time to focus on the things that matter.
So that's such an important point, Guy. One of the things that I hear quite a lot when people are thinking about making this push and saying, no, I will be delivering cloud in my data center, is sometimes people worry about their own roles and their own jobs. I've never met anyone who's ever wanted to go back once they've made this switch. What happens is those things that the values that you have, they don't go away. In fact, your value is actually escalated. It's elevated within the company because now you're able to use those skills to actually provide these services and this consumption, which the rest of the business absolutely loves. So IT's value always goes up and terrifically, in my experience, along with increased budgets, when you actually switch to providing these value services. So let's just try and bring to life maybe a simple technical level what this automation looks like. So perhaps many of you are familiar with when you get the infrastructure update that comes through. And, I know for many years, there's been a number of headaches in, okay, which bit do I install when and how, and what do I need to have before? So let's just have a quick look at the infrastructure lifecycle management portion. And this is just one portion of the end-to-end automation within a hybrid cloud platform. So I'm going to use VMware Cloud Foundation 3, and that's because VMware Cloud Foundation 4 has just come out, so there aren't any updates that I can show you. But within the SDDC manager, you can see we actually have a couple of workload domains. And workload domains are logical separations of various applications and virtual machines that you may have, which again support that model of consumption that we talked about before. So in this example, we can go in our workload domains. We can see very simple construct. We've got 2 workload domains, one for management and workload domain 1, so where our workloads are actually residing. And you can see that we've got some updates ready for the infrastructure. So one of them for management says ready. So let's go and have a look. And in the updates and patches, we can see what it is and run a pre-check. So this is going to check everything that's needed to make this update work is there. So it's going to check the services are running, that you've got enough storage, all those things that might trip you up if you were trying to do this manually. Now this pre-check passed, but it's given us some warnings. But we don't need to worry in this instance because the warnings are just that this cluster isn't connected to the internet. So that's not actually a problem for us at this time. So we can exit the pre-check. And then we could schedule the update, or we can just click update now. So let's update now. And when we update, just in case you press it accidentally, if too much automation is scary, you get a little 2-minute timer to say, whoops, didn't mean to press that. But once you click go ahead, this is now going to go through and automatically handle all those dependencies, the upgrade order, everything that has historically been so challenging in terms of managing infrastructure, all of it just handled in order, being tested every step of the way to make sure that everything installs correctly. And then you can go and have a look at what's been upgraded. You can do your audits or whatever you need to do, and we're done. Now, the really interesting thing about this is when we then go back into the workload domains, we can now see that both environments have ready updates. So this is now it's a bit more like an iPhone catalog, right? So the workload domain 1 update couldn't have happened until the management domain had previously been updated. So it wasn't even shown until you've now updated that, and now we see as more updates available. So this was, that's incredibly simple. It's the power of automation, really, for something that used to take a lot of time for people to do. But I think it gets across the concept of what cloud in the data center from an infrastructure and operations perspective really looks like. Let's tie that to everything else, right? So Guy talked about using multi-cloud and, all the different application types, and VMware's strapline for VMware Cloud is any app on any cloud to any device. So let's just quickly run through and see, what does that look like in terms of where these different technologies fit? Because there's a number of perspectives going on here that can be quite difficult to plug together. So let's start with the applications, because applications are what drive innovation. They're what drive business value. And in applications, we have those traditional monoliths, big composite applications that do everything in a single package. At the other end of the spectrum, we have cloud native applications, which may be consuming functions as a service, native AWS, anything that's kind of pre-packaged as a cloud native service. And then those monoliths, the problem is you've got to change everything at once. And microservices have arisen, where you basically decompose that application into all the different services a single application can provide, and then you can just work on, develop, and evolve those services independently using any particular technology they require. Now, as I said earlier, quite often this turns itself into hybrid applications because you have microservices for parts of applications. Now, if you want to use all of those technologies at once, which we already understand we will need to, then you need a number of supporting technology types. You'll need virtual machines, you need containers, you need scale frameworks for containers, Kubernetes, platforms as a service, functions as a service. You need all of those things to be supported at once. And that's really what the hybrid cloud plus extension into native clouds of VMware Cloud is providing. And we refer to it as consistent infrastructure. So it's an infrastructure that you operate in the same way that will also support all of these application platform technologies. Again, let's have a quick look at that. So this is VMware Cloud Foundation 4. And remember, I mentioned that Kubernetes is now integrated, and we use Kubernetes as the example. So one of the interesting things about DevOps is for all the challenges they have, it's normally a language barrier. People aren't talking about the same things. Developers talk about objects in one way, operators talk about it in a different way. What you can see here is that as a developer or an application team are actually provisioning using Kubernetes on the right, you can see those Kubernetes objects are now appearing in your vCenter on the left. And the really cool thing about this is, one, it's instantaneous, but two, they're called exactly the same thing. So all the constructs that the developers and application teams are referring to are actually now visible from within the way you're managing your hybrid cloud infrastructure as well. And now that's just scratching the surface of the integration here, but for me, that taxonomy and the visibility is such a huge shift for developers and operators to be really forming the teamwork that's required to make development less painful and faster. If we look at how Kubernetes is represented in vCenter a little bit more, we can see that everything that you know today is there in vCenter, but we can actually look at Kubernetes objects and look at them from a Kubernetes perspective. But we can still apply the operation principles that we're used to applying to virtual machines. So we can add permissions for access. We can add storage policies. We can add resource limitations to manage our capacity. All those things, those things are needed for new application frameworks just as much as they're needed for traditional. And here, those things are running side by side with your consistent ability to manage across both those traditional VMs as well as applications that are leveraging Kubernetes and containers. So a really big shift and demonstration of what consistent infrastructure for virtual machines and containers looks like. So that's our consistent infrastructure that's supporting the running of those different application types. But, we have these different cloud environments. We've got the hybrid cloud environment, which is infrastructure that we're largely controlling. We have native clouds like AWS and Azure, which we're not controlling that infrastructure, but we still need to manage. And this is where multi-cloud operations comes in. And multi-cloud operations is made up of several key things that you need to do no matter where an application lives. Just to scene set for a second, when it comes to multi-cloud management, there's kind of three main perspectives that we need to recognize. The first is the management of a hybrid cloud. Typically, looking after that infrastructure, the performance, the automation of that infrastructure service. There's the multi-cloud management, which is managing your cloud platforms in terms of cost, security, optimization, and automation. And then there's the management of the applications, be it the availability of the apps, the security, or actually interrogating specific performance of individual applications. They're three different perspectives, okay, not to be confused with each other. When it comes to multi-cloud management, it's a really interesting area. And I don't know how many people are actually managing their multi-cloud environments like AWS, Azure yet, but in my experience, you will be soon. It's a very good thing to get ahead of the curve of, so you don't inherit as many issues. And you can add a lot of value really on day one from starting to be involved in this, because the principles are very familiar to those of us with traditional IT backgrounds. There's a maturity curve that everybody goes through when it comes to using multi-cloud. The first thing is visibility, just knowing what you've got where it is. The second thing is optimization, gaining that efficiency on those things that you have. Then it's about applying governance and automation. How do you stop things going astray in the first place? How do you apply your security policies? And finally, as we shift right, it's about integrating into business. So we really achieve what Guy was talking about, a level of business integration where we're leveraging our IT capabilities for business priorities. And at each stage of this maturity model, there's three kind of profiles that all evolve in similar ways. So there's financial oversight, there is your ability to operate your IT, and there's your ability to secure your IT. So in visibility, finance might just be about knowing how much am I spending. But then as we get to optimization for finance, it's about making significant efficiency savings on what I'm spending. And then into governance, it's stopping me spending things that I shouldn't be spending on in an automated way. For operations, again, it's about knowing what workloads do I actually have where. For optimizing, it's getting rid of zombie resources, things that are running but aren't being used. And governance and automation is setting policies so that people can only provision workloads under the terms and conditions that you set. So these things apply across all, and this can be a great topic for maybe another session in the future. If you're interested, let us know. We can really dig into this. It's a fascinating area. But everyone starts at the left, and the goal is to slide right as fast as possible. And you on this call are going to be the perfect people to actually drive that, because you already have the base understanding. I like to explain these concepts through a quick demonstration. So let's just have a look at what multi-cloud visibility looks like. So multi-cloud visibility, you can see here on a single dashboard that you have every single one of your clouds, including data center, plus hybrid clouds like VMware Cloud and AWS, in a single chart. So you can see a consolidated view of your overall spend That could be by month, by week, whatever it is that you need. But what in multi-cloud, it's often not you controlling the resources. So it's often lines of business that are spinning up their own resources. So we can also look at that spend by individual lines of business. We could include that to be individual applications or individual projects, actually see what individual elements of our business are actually spending on these public cloud services. And we can go further as well. We could actually say, what I particularly want to know is how much is production spending on this application at this point in time. A lot of cloud mature organizations are doing this right now because of the current situation. Their different go-to-markets are changing in importance, right? So they're looking at their applications and their different environments as to how much each is spending and saying, look, that one's more important. We should increase the spend on that. We should decrease the spend on this. So fantastic spend oversight to align to what you're seeing in business terms on a daily basis. And this granularity can go really, really deep. So in one screen, what we can do here is look at all the individual services that are driving those cloud costs. Right. So on one screen, we've got Amazon S3, we've got Azure Storage, we've got Google Compute Engine, literally the line items for what's generating the spend. That's fantastic for spend control. It's also a fantastic way to prioritize your development. So you can actually have your developers, look at the areas that are generating high cost of sale, i.e. high expense, and say, why don't we revisit that code? Let's see if we can optimize that and, for spend, and then we get greater profitability out of that go-to-market. That's a very mature model into business integration, but even at level 1 here on visibility, you can see how that capability becomes so important. Guy, multi-cloud visibility, you must talk to a lot of customers that frankly struggle with it.
Yeah, it's something that, when you start to think about the cost control elements that go into that, and the idea that, when you're providing choice to people, that understanding the true cost of a service that you're running actually becomes really important, so that you can make sensible decisions about, do you choose service A over service B? Cost is always a factor into that. Getting that visibility into the sort of traditionally project-based CapEx, maybe slightly obscure costs that an on-premise data center might bring, actually allows those service owners to make better choices as a result. So really, really important to be able to bring the costs across all of those platforms together into one place.
And the amazing thing is that typically when you start on this journey, we'll typically see within a few weeks, and this is a great way for IT to get involved in multi-cloud if it's not already, we typically see savings of 25 to 30% achieved in a matter of weeks, which is very nice for getting the finance team on your side, and freeing up budget for you to invest into more multi-cloud capability, because you can so quickly demonstrate your value to the multi-cloud technologies in use. So that's cloud operations. The final bit that we really won't spend long on, because I want to get to Q&A, is building applications, right? So everything we've described so far has really been about our ability to run applications, to provide them and service them. But obviously we need to build the applications now that we can take advantage of the multi-cloud model. The really nice thing about this is, because we're providing the consistency of a multi-cloud environment, we can develop any way we like. So it's not all going to be on a forced PaaS. That might be great for a whole bunch of apps. It's not all going to be agile and container-based, etc. That's going to be great for some apps, but you're still going to want some that are traditional waterfall, but you might want to speed those things up and improve the quality through automation. So that's what the VMware Tanzu package of services is really about. Giving that application development capability, taking advantage of an assumed multi-cloud capability. So briefly speaking, it's the tools to build applications. All that you saw earlier, where it was in kubectl, where we were kind of provisioning. You don't have to do that. You can just use Tanzu Application Service, do a Cloud Foundry push, your applications published, right? Observability is about saying, well, now I've published these apps, I understand the cost of every individual service, I can understand the performance of every individual service as well. So not only can I focus my developers on where our cost is high per line of code, I can focus my developers on where performance is poor per line of code. So a really powerful suite of services that takes advantage of this multi-cloud platform, which, as we said right at the start, is really why it's the essential pathway to driving innovation, because you're letting people develop for the right technology on the right cloud at the right time. So that's the any app, any cloud to any device model. And what it's really doing with all that detail is providing these key principles of consistent infrastructure, consistent operations across clouds to give you that consistent developer experience. And kind of closing up this section, in my experience, it's very, very difficult to do that without these technologies. But also, these technologies are all tiny incremental steps for you. So it's not a ditch everything and move in. Everything you do today still has value. It's incremental steps to layer these things in, which is a really powerful thing to do. And if you've got the technical platform that enables you to embrace the multi-cloud, then the only thing left to do is to have a partner, frankly, who gets it, who gets where you're going and what it is you're trying to do. And that seems a good time to hand back to you, Guy.
Yeah, nice segue, Richard. Thank you very much for that. I find that really interesting. Thanks for running through that detail. I think that connection into the sort of the DevOps world and people that, particularly from a sort of traditional IT infrastructure perspective, might seem a bit strange and a bit foreign. And bringing those two worlds together really just helps break down those barriers and allows that kind of that better choice of service across those platforms.
Sometimes it feels like a chasm of opposition.
Yeah, it certainly
it's
can.
Really not. Yeah, and it's really not. It's just once you solve that taxonomy, you're able to provide the services that each other needs. It's actually fantastic teamwork, and all those skills are. We've all seen the banks who just went all cloud native and they're now in a horror story. No one on this call would have done that, right?
No,
so it's mixing these worlds and taking advantage of all the skills you have available.
Yeah, and so that the developers stop seeing the IT department as people who say no or take too long, and that the IT department stop seeing developers as people that go off and do their own thing without the sort of control or thought around it. Actually, they're all doing it for the right reasons from their perspective, and it's just about enabling each other.
Yeah, spot on.
Cool. Okay. Well, just as a wrap up, I'd like to quickly cover how CDW can assist you in this area. There's really sort of three things to it. First of all, our expertise ranges across all of the hybrid cloud technologies, from on-premises right the way through to the public cloud platforms. Our key partners in those spaces are all of the major manufacturers that you'd expect, including HPE, Cisco, and Dell EMC. And we complement that with our relationships with Microsoft Azure and with Amazon AWS. And that gives us the sort of complete set of elements that we need to be able to talk about a true hybrid cloud platform. We've actually also got our own CDW ServiceWorks cloud that we've been running for a number of years. So have a long heritage of understanding how we can be delivering cloud solutions to our customers. With VMware specifically, as a premier partner, we've got deep knowledge of their solutions through the investment that we make in our skills in their technology, as well as the relationship that we've got deep into VMware's teams. And this is something that we can bring to bear to you as our customers through both the direct engagements that we've got, as well as this kind of thing, through demonstrations and test drives that we've got available. Please do get in touch and we'd be happy to share that kind of thing with you. Finally, CDW can support the entire IT lifecycle. We've got over 45 agnostic, free of charge technology experts that can give you the benefit of their solution experience as you're starting to think about and plan your solutions. We've got the consultants and engineers that can help you deploy and migrate to these powerful technologies. And of course, through our dedicated 24/7 service operations center in Peterborough, we've got the complete portfolio of managed services to help you operate those throughout their life. And again, sort of help you focus on the things that are more important to your organization and your users. So thank you very much for the time today. We really hope that you found this useful. Very much look forward to running more sessions to delve deeper into some of these areas. Happy to answer any questions that you've got with the time that we've got left. So please do feel free to put those into the Q&A window. I know there's been a question there, Rick Wakefield, who were asking about the live migration that Richard talked about with the with moving virtual machines from an on-premise environment into public cloud, and he's asking about the sort of differences there between vMotion versus how you do that with Kubernetes. I don't know whether Richard, you want to expand on that at all.
So theoretically, you could do it with Kubernetes. It's really a build model. So with Kubernetes applications tend to be built to package, deploy, redeploy. So I'll be honest, you can do it. We don't typically see it because mostly if you want to move it from place A to place B, you would simply redeploy a bunch of containers, share the load for a while, and then all your containers are actually in the other. But sure, the technology exists, so it's doable. I'll be interested if anyone thinks they need it. And as to why, it's something that we'd be interested to look at.
It's funny, I think, we see some people start to use Kubernetes and containers and then try and make them permanent rather than ephemeral, so that actually the storage inside each of those containers becomes important, and you need to worry about individual instances, which sort of goes slightly against the principle, I always feel.
It does, but I'm massively sympathetic. So in fact, I've known use cases for quite a while where persistent storage was critical, and what was quite funny is there's a number of kind of AWS fans used to ridicule me for stating that was perfectly viable until AWS just the other week announced support for EFS. So we all come around. I think there's always a purest way to do things, and we can understand that. But particularly if you think about hybrid applications, yes, a container itself may well be purely ephemeral, but if it's acting a role as part of a hybrid application, then having some kind of persistent state could well be required. What we tend to see, though, is that the container element could still be redeployed, but you'd live vMotion the persistent store or whatever it is, to the remote site. But again, if you've got a use case on that, I'd be really interested to hear about it and discuss more. Certainly, the technology allows you to.
Yeah, I think it's making sure that there's the abstraction between those layers at least, so that you can still scale and manage them independently is the key thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So where people go wrong. Okay, I've not seen any more questions in the Q&A. So in which case, thank you very much again. We'll wrap up there.
Thanks very much, everyone. Sorry for the race through. It's a huge topic, but I appreciate your attention.
Cool. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.